And a warm welcome to you. Welcome to K24 This Morning. It's Wednesday, 29th of July at 8 on the nose right here in Nairobi. It's time for our newspaper review. My name is Jeff Motegi. As always, if you're just joining us for the first time, we look at the big stories making headlines right across your dailies and also talk about the current affairs of the day. Today, it's all about, looking at the cost of a sober economy. What does that really mean moving forward? We'd love to you to be part of this conversation. You can get me at I am Jeff Motegi on Twitter or at K24TV as well on the same platform. Let's look at some of the headlines that you'll be having this morning as you get up and get ready for your day. Front page of the People Daily, emotions run high in county's revenue debate. Senators extend session into night after Minority Leader Orengo's attempt to seek an adjournment of the House is soundly defeated. A quote from Senator Orengo, the way this vote has been portrayed will make the same mistake we made in the 1960s. So really giving an emotional appeal, even on the floor of the House, giving some historical perspective as to how they've gotten to where they were, but still that wasn't enough to sway those who are in the House on that particular day. And you can find that story on page 2 of your People Daily therein. Also, on the front page of your PD, Kinoti skips DPP City Forum as rivalry persists. They've been trying to play it down and said all was well between the two, but clearly there seems to be more than meets the eye, according to the People Daily, and you can get that story on page 4 of your People Daily today. Also, weather or engine, Mkapa funeral riddle, the big question as to why the Kenyan delegation didn't get to land in Tanzania for that particular funeral. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also issued their statement on that, but really, is there something else that is bubbling beneath the surface? That story can be found on page 5 of your People Daily. And even as you look at those particular stories, to keep a keen eye on the COVID-19 cases and the numbers reported daily. Yesterday, in the last 24 hours, 606 testing positive, bringing our total figure to 18,581 corona cases testing positive since they began those tests. You can find those stories and more in your copy of your People Daily. And don't forget, you can get your copy of your People Daily straight to your phone wherever you are across this country, and all you need is a number *550 *4#. Once again, the number is *550 *4#. Dial that number, get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone, and it's all brought to you by the People Daily and Safaricom. So if you're stuck in a meeting, early morning meeting, probably don't want to leave the house and go to your newspaper vendor, you can get it straight to your phone. And the number, once again, *550 *4#. Get yourself a copy of your People Daily. Moving right along to the front page of your Daily Nation now. Salaries heartbreak for NAT members. Some 32,556 teachers did not receive improved pay or get promoted after the TSC said they are under the scheme of service that is favored by the union. So this coming at a time really when most people looking for any extra shilling they can get during this particular COVID pandemic. You can see the teachers pawns in a war between the employer and their union, and being used as bargaining chips by both of these particular parties. And they're the ones who are suffering in terms of what really they take home in terms of salary. And that's the front page story in your copy of your Daily Nation today. Looking at matters COVID-19 drugs to be tested in Kenya, says the Daily Nation. This story can be found on page 4. Patients at major public and private hospitals to be treated with remdesivir, an antiviral drug. We'd spoken about this, I think, last month as well, as internationally this was a drug of choice in terms of dealing with the pandemic, and right now will be tested in Kenya as well. That story can be found on page 4 of your Daily Nation. Also in the Daily Nation, still no deal on revenue sharing formula. After a series of amendments and grandstanding, senators once again failed to agree on a formula for allocation of county revenues and adjourned the discussion to Tuesday next week. Some people thought that fifth time would be the charm for this particular house, but it seems like they're at a point where that isn't possible. That story can be found on page 7 of your Daily Nation today. And still on matters politics, fights over party cash get messy. Disgruntled members of Jubilee, NARC, threaten to lodge disputes in court. We've seen how that story has played out within the ruling party as it is ask for more transparency in how these particular funds have been used. And you can get that story on page 8 of your Daily Nation. Moving along to the Standard now, front page of the Standard. Cutting Kinoti down to size, says the front page. Sinking ship. Hardly a week after the High Court slammed brakes on him, DCI boss suffers yet another blow after prosecution guidelines which he is opposed to are endorsed by his bosses. What next for the Daredevil Cop? Similar headline talking about the rivalry that's going on between him, of course, and the DPP. Where does that leave the DCI boss? And more importantly, what does that that leave the state of investigations right across the country? What does that mean for Kenyans expecting service delivery and, of course, synergy between these departments and bosses? You can get that story on page 6 of your Standard this morning. They're also talking about the twists and turns as senators decide on county billions. Senators last night confronted the hard decision after a spirited bid by Orengo and Wetangula to adjourn the motion to seek consensus failed. Where do they move from here, of course, because at the end of the day, the counties will still need this money for operation as well. You can get more insight on that on page 2 of your Standard today. Also in the Standard, ugly scenes as city leaders engage in supremacy battles. You can see the picture right there of an MCA being really pulled out of County Hall, of course, yesterday. Some of the scenes right there. And you can get that story on page 3 of your Standard this morning. How Corona is robbing Kenyans of their culture. From burial rituals to rites of passage, the Corona pandemic is leaving chaos in its wake and rewriting age-old cultural norms and practices. That story can be found as well in your copy of your Standard. It is a special report on page 12 and 13 today. Moving it right along to the Star, front and center. In the Star, it's all about what transpired yesterday on the floor of the House. Senators defy Raila Uhuru in cash row. New method could take effect in 2022. They're giving a quote from Raila Odinga on this. It has also taken a dangerous ethnic undertone instead of being a level-headed debate on the nation's development trajectory. This is an issue, of course, that had also been raised yesterday on the floor of the House as to how they are coming up with this particular third-generation formula and the type of debate that was going on yesterday on the floor of the House. And you can get that story in your copy of your Star this morning. The Star also weighing in on the diplomatic tiff, they're calling it, during the funeral of Mkapa. Kenya denies Tanzania turned back delegation. That story can be found as well on page 2 of your Star today. Finally, front page of the Business Daily, Tuskys reveals 2 billion shilling emergency bailout bid. Troubled retailer seeks cash boost for short-term survival and suppliers pay. This is the second time we've seen Tuskys in the headlines as far as the operations are concerned this week. And you can get the story in detail in your copy of your Business Daily therein. As you can see, lots to discuss right here, from revenue issues, Matters County, as well as the presidential address that was given. And of course, one of those hardest hit, of course, are restaurants and bars in terms of their operations. So today we'll also be keeping a keen eye and steering that discussion in terms of what's the cost of a sober economy, even if at least for 30 days. And what really does this mean, not only for the 30 days, but how do these businesses pick up even as they move forward? We'll be discussing that and plenty more right here. It's time for your news review. Good morning. And welcome back. Of course, as always, we love your input, of course, on all the discussions we're having right here on the show. You can get me at I am Jeff Mort. You can also get me at K24TV. And of course, having this discussion in studio, we've been talking about this for a while. We're actually trying to see how we can get them a couple of offices, because they're here every so often in studio, joined by Churchill Ogutu. He's the head of research at Genghis Capital. Good morning, Churchill.
Morning, Jeff.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
And of course, no stranger to this station or the show, Mike Macharia, CEO of Kenya Hotel Keepers and Caterers. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
Karibu sana.
Yeah, good to be back here.
Asante sana. And also joining the conversation via Skype is the managing director of Mount Kenya Breweries. He's also the chairman of the Alcoholic Beverages Association. Gordon Motegi, getting us from Skype right here in Nairobi. Good morning, Gordon.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you doing?
Very well. Karibu sana. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Asante sana. And of course, as you can see, panel is ready to speak about this particular issue in terms of what the cost of a sober economy is. But let's set the stage for this. Now, over the days, closing and reopening has been an act, of course, that we've been looking at for a while. And even as we look at this particular issue, it's often taken the national government in a bid to stop further spread of this particular pandemic. However, on the flip side, questions have been raised in regards to closure of club and entertainment joint businesses, focusing on the effects on millions of mothers and fathers who depend on this particular trade for a living. K24's Ben Carrera toured some of these joints and had this story.
I'm not saying that we are prohibiting you from walking into a supermarket and enjoying your kanywaji and at home.
A point of clarification by the Health Cabinet Secretary after the directive by the head of state on Monday caused consternation among business people dealing in the sale of liquor.
Pombe ndio ilileta corona. Pombe ndio inafanyaga corona iendelee.
ama pombe imeweza kudhibitishwa ya kwamba ni ingredient ya kufanya corona iweze kusambaa kwa watu.
That is the situation in which Richard Kagiri has been left in, with a directive leading to more questions than answers.
Ni wapi imedhibitika ya kwamba katika soko huwezi pata corona, katika mall, katika supermarket huwezi pata corona, katika matatu huwezi pata corona, katika pikipiki huwezi pata corona, katika duka huwezi pata corona, lakini iwe tu hata katika kanisa huwezi pata corona, lakini iwe tu ni kwa bar peke yake unaweza pata corona.
While the president's directive is aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19, for business people like Richard, it is a double-edged sword.
Baadhi zingine zinalipaga hata 400,000, miezi minne unadaiwa 1.6 million, saa zingine umeweka stock ya 2 million, na pia ulikuwa umejeka hiyo kuifanya ikae vile unataka na saa zingine 3 million. Sasa tunapoteza kama 10 million kwa mtu mmoja.
Bonke Omwai, the Step Villa's real estate consultant managing director, strongly believes that the president failed to touch on the most crucial matters.
The president did not tell us what he's planning to do as far as this damage is concerned. How are business people going to recover? Because within these 30 days, most of restaurants are going to be auctioned.
Bonke reasons that not only will the economy fluctuate, but cases of conflict in families alongside teenage pregnancies will now be on the rise.
Some Kenyans are going through divorce. When you're telling these people maybe he has been retrenched, he doesn't have a job, going back home at 5, sober, and all that frustration. Some cannot even service their loans because of the corona. It's really going to kill majority of Kenyans.
He is adamant that the government could have done much more, and that the closing down of businesses was not a control measure.
Actually, the president could have locked the country. Because if somebody is coming from the US right now, and the state is saying that they can go through volunteer quarantine for 2 weeks, then after 2 weeks, maybe this person has corona, and he goes straight to Murang'a. So how do you consider this person from the US with an ordinary Kenyan who is living around and taking his 2 beers and goes home?
In the event his outcry is not listened to, Richard Kagiri prefers not to be around to witness the misery that his family will go through.
Hakuna haja ya mtoto wangu aliage jana nikiwa hapo na siwezi kumpatia chochote. Heri nikufe, mtoto wangu ajuage nilikufa, badala anionage tu hapo nikiwa kama zimu yama.
Ben Kerera, K24.
Very real sentiments of those on the ground. And you know, they usually say, kwa ground, sana vitu zinakwanga different. Let's have this discussion now in studio and actually see what this means from various lenses and various views. Let's start in studio. Churchill, we spoke last before the presidential address. Any surprises that were in there for you when he spoke? Was there anything you were expecting that he didn't touch on?
Thanks, Jeff. Well, people or personally expected that there could be some severe containment measures, just looking at the numbers, spike of confirmed COVID cases. So it was surprising. It didn't pan out that way as I saw it, that these severe containment measures, either bringing back the cessation of movements in the 4 or 5 counties that were there, but that didn't happen. So at least the economy partly is sort of open. But now what we saw is these targeted measures. Now the restaurants and the bar owners, so those are the ones which are feeling the brunt of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And let me have Mike in on this one as well, in terms of expectation, because up until 3 p.m. That particular day, most people thought a lockdown was in the offing, or some sort of restriction of movement. That wasn't even on the cards. We are still ready for even international flights coming in.
Yes.
What was your expectation on what would be spoken about, especially in regards to your industry?
I think, Jeff, there was an expectation that pubs would be, not really pubs, because bars, if you remember from March, bars have always been closed.
Right.
The ones that have been open are really restaurants and hotels. So there was an expectation that there would be a targeted move against restaurants.
So you could see that coming?
We could see it coming because there was already some Gazette notice floating around last week. We have become used to seeing the president and everything stops because not many, every time he's going to make an address, not many people expect some good news.
Right.
They expect bad news, which is something that probably needs to change because you will recall on the 6th when he came, he came out with some very specific measures and said to the country, if you don't adhere to these measures, then the option of a reclosure is always on the table.
Right.
And I think he lived up to his word. But at the same time, you must understand that this is a government that's trying to protect its citizens. And you're thinking, do you shut down or do you open up? Now, if you shut down, you've got problems with the economy. You've got poverty looming. You've got people dying of hunger. You've got mental health. You had an established businessman there giving suicidal thoughts.
Right.
So you've got all these problems that attach to a lockdown. And on the other hand, you've got all these problems that attach to a super spread of this disease. So it's a very difficult situation for him to be in. But at the same time, I think we could have done a little bit more. We could have done it a bit better by conducting a full evaluation of what was really going on.
Right.
Because you remember sometime in April, we went and did protocols.
Right.
We did standard operating procedures for hotels, for airlines, for restaurants, for transport, for national parks and everything. And we came out with one big document that was even endorsed by the UNWTTC and UNWTO as a safe travel destination if people kept to those protocols.
Right.
Now, we've been conducting our own checks, and we found that a good number of the membership is actually compliant. They went and did what they were supposed to do, distancing, reducing crowds and everything. However, there were few bad apples, and those are the ones that we would have thought would have been dealt with. But the president told us you can't police everybody.
Right.
So a blanket ban for 30 days would probably whip people back into line. So let's wait and see. It's a 30-day period.
Right.
Let's see whether the numbers will continue increasing or it'll flatten the curve. There are many more areas that we observe that need to be addressed. And also in terms of mitigation, apart from lockdown, what else can we do? This is what we expect from the experts.
Right, and we'll be talking about that also even as we move forward, because this definitely is a wait-and-see measure even after 30 days on that. Let me bring in Gordon Motegi as well on this. He's the Managing Director, Mount Kenya Breweries. And we've from that particular piece that we just heard before we went on this particular conversation, Chairman of the Kiambu Bar Association, talking about how he's feeling like essential players in your industry are really being vilified. It seems like corona is only being spread in the bars, and he's talking about warrant marketplaces getting such treatment as well, and other areas where there's that type of social gathering. Do you share the same sentiment with what we've just heard?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I think for us it's a bit unfortunate seeing the draconian move by government to declare to point at alcohol as if it's only source of the spread of corona. We saw in the first few weeks socio and economic lockdowns across the world, and which was very understandable because we didn't have an understanding of the virus. But now focus is shifting to supporting businesses to return to normalcy, and helping and supporting businesses to accept the new ways of working. So for us, we feel that in the same way that we are supporting, the tourism sector, the travel sector, it goes hand in hand with the entertainment industry. It goes hand in hand with the alcohol industry. And for us, an industry that supports 200,000 legitimate employments, across the country, with about 40,000 bars, the retailers, the distributors, including even the farmers who are the source of, the raw material. We felt that, government should not pinpoint one particular industry, but instead it should have, supported the entire spectrum and help stabilize in the new ways of doing things. You see, everyone is adjusting to new ways, even in entertainment, even in alcohol consumption. A lot of effort is going on, especially among the members of ABAC, just trying to sensitize, the retailers and the bar owners in ways of ensuring that there's health and safety of our consumers. And so when you see government pointing at one industry, and saying that, bars need to close so that we can curb coronavirus, I think it is a bit deceptive, it's a bit unfair, and it also points to the wrong direction, because what will happen in 21 days when you close the bars, and we realistically know that it's not necessarily going to reduce the spread of the virus. So I think for us, we feel that we, like any other sector, legitimate sector, should be supported to adjust the new ways, of doing things, rolling out policies and protocols, rebuilding trust with the consumers, and also integrating innovation. If you look at across the board, if you look at some of the members like East African Breweries and ourselves and many other people have rolled out digital marketing. They have rolled out, a lot of online sales so that people do not sit in bars, so that people do not necessarily have to congregate to consume alcohol. But when you curtail all that and say that there's a blanket ban on the sale of alcohol, it takes us back, very many steps from an economic point of view. It jeopardizes so many people, hundreds of thousands who depend on the industry. And we are talking of over 200,000 legitimate employments. So I think there are better ways in which we can do this, especially working with government to see what are the new ways that people can, enjoy themselves responsibly, and, also support lives and livelihoods that, draw a living out of the industry.
Okay, Gordon, I want to push back on that a bit, because we are looking at it from a point of view where, especially with most entertainment, sports, pubs and clubs, the whole element of social distancing really, as the night goes on, usually becomes a bit more distorted. You find that at this point I can sit and a couple of meters from Churchill, but by midnight we are face to face talking about the Man U game or the Liverpool game. And we've seen various institutions, various levels of society. We had Senator Sakaja also on the wrong end of the law as far as this is concerned. Someone who's chairing the same committee that should be looking at this. And some people are saying, well, the president really didn't have a choice, because he's tried to give a try at responsible drinking, and that isn't really working. So a draconian measure had to be put in place. What would you have rather he done practically to deal with this?
No, Jeff, I think first thing, I need to be very clear and on record that we support some level of control around consumption of alcohol. And you see, first of all, with the substance itself. And we have a problem with the behavior associated with the consumption of alcohol, the resultant behavior. And we totally support the issue of, closing the bars at 7 p.m. Yeah. Even if different licenses stipulate various hours of closure. For example, the wines and spirits, are open during the day and close at 5. The bars which open at 4 and close at 9. So we want to operate within the stipulated hours of the curfew and so on. What we are against, is picking out and pointing at an industry like this is the cause and the proliferation of the virus is as a result of opening of eateries and bars. You see, even if you open the eateries, yeah, and you say don't sell alcohol, but it is still open the same times up to 9 p.m. I don't see a lot of difference in terms of the social distancing with the consumers. So what we would rather have seen is the president, suggesting protocols, or, the same way that is happening in all the other industries when the education sector, the stakeholders are sitting, if it is the religious sector, people look at what are the ways of self-regulation and self-control. So in the same way, I think this is an industry that supports the economy a lot, would have looked at people, coming up with protocols, coming up with ways which, can save lives, protect the health of, the consumers, but at the same time look at the business aspect of it. So it is not that we want people to consume alcohol up to midnight. No. In fact, consumers need to be sensitized that alcohol impairs judgment. So you don't want to, be at a point where you have to make a judgment about living or dying when, you are under the influence of alcohol. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that people who want to make informed and responsible choices about the consumption, should be curtailed their freedom to do that. So there is no problem with the takeaway, for example. And I think we also need to make it clear right now that takeaway alcohol is not banned. What the president tried to emphasize on was, sit-in, consumption in bars. So people can still go to, the nearest supermarket or wines and spirits, and pick up your drink and enjoy responsibly in the confines of your house or, in the areas of safety. So we do support, some raft of measures, but we would want the business community around the alcohol industry to also be supported in a way that, we don't now have another problem of, so many people out of employment. So many people can't make, a living out of it.
Okay, we'll take a short break at that particular point in time. Of course, this conversation continues even after the break. We're not only looking at this, but also economically, what do you expect in terms of interventions in these various industries? You had an 8-point economic stimulus package. How's that faring so far? We look at that, of course, and take your tweets as well. You can get me at I am Jeff Motegi or at K24TV. This is a newspaper review. Back after the break.